topics for people today.
We do. Listen, if you're a coach, if you are in the space right now of helping others, okay, and you want to understand how to take it to the next level, our guest today is going to bring it. So get some notes out and get ready to scribble some things down. You're definitely going to want to know who this is. We'll be back in 30 seconds to introduce you to Mr. Jeremy. We'll be right back. All right, Jeremy the Merchant, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you got the opportunity to experience quite a bit of things going on in the background, right, today as we've been prepping. So I am excited for our audience to get to meet you, and I'd like you to take a few minutes and kind of just give them your origin story, your background story. We don't normally get sales experts on the show, and I'm really pumped because as we're getting ready to go into 2023, there's a lot of individuals who have been seriously considering this side hustle becoming the main hustle, and I think that you're here for the right time. So why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself a little bit to us, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me. First off, I guess I started in sales when I was 14 years old, working at a convenience store. Walked in one day on my weekend shift, saw a box of these $1 scratch tickets. And on the scratch tickets, there was the name of a billiards hall called Dooley's. It's a Canadian thing. And obviously I was too young to buy scratch tickets, but I was excited because I wasn't very active, but I could play pool. So I thought it was neat. So the first person walked in that day and I said, hey, have you seen these tickets? You should buy one. And they bought one. And the next person walked in, I said, hey, have you seen these? And they bought two. And it kept going like that through the whole weekend. And by the end of my shift on the Sunday, I had sold out of these $1 scratch tickets. And I realized that if I could be enthusiastic or excited about something, I could influence someone's buying decisions. And then I realized, oh, like this could be fun. I could have, a major impact on people. And it sort of became addictive at that point. And so it was, hey, what can I do to help influence someone's buying decisions? And then later on, in the working world, in the real job world, if you will, I got to the point where I realized, okay, with great power comes great responsibility. And much like Uncle Ben told Peter Parker, when it comes to sales, there is significant power, but you need to make sure you're using it for the right reasons. And that's why, I'm a firm believer that you need to have, lean into ethical sales because there's a huge opportunity to become the supervillain in the sales space if you allow yourself to be.
Exactly.
But we need to make sure that we keep the industry clean. We need to make sure that sales isn't a bad word anymore.
The other four-letter word.
Yeah.
Right,
Listen,
exactly.
No offense for those who are cell phone or used car salesmen, but I think those are really just the primary, those are the groups that typically, I think, give off that. But it's funny, we're all in sales, right? And I think we've been doing this since we were a kid. And, whether you are trying to convince your spouse, convince your children trying to convince your parents. I mean, kids have sales figured out from day one, right? They work mom, they work dad. They'll figure out how to leverage what they need. Well, dad said this, mom said this, and before you know it, they get what they want. I think it's interesting because we use sales skills and tactics all the time, but we miss it when we realize that we have opportunity here to gain the correct influence, right? Whether you're in a job or whether you're bringing a service or product. Now, one of the things I love about the space you're in is you've understood the power of technology, Jeremy. Technology today, and integrating this with let's use a startup. Let's use a small business right now as a good example. Let's use them as a like a coaching business, or let's use mine. Okay. We're 7-figure, 5 employees trying to build a program. I come to you, Jeremy, and I'm like, look, I want to take this to the next level. Like, how does you and your company come and help me?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things, but first, we want to lean in on like how we can leverage technology to make your life easier. You've got, great product, great service, great results, but we want to make sure that you've got the technology in place to help amplify that, right? You don't want to just go kind of continue on as you're going. You want to continue to grow. And the first thing is you either need to have a bigger team to deliver bigger results or leverage technology to do it. And so from our end, we come in and say, hey, look, why don't we develop a system for you? A system that will take a lot of the heavy lifting off your plate, because in your position and some key players of your team, you need to be focusing on the things that are $1,000 an hour tasks, not the $10 an hour tasks. And you can have people in your team that does that, but you want to make sure that you're leveraging technology as much as possible, because you will never have somebody as cost effective doing those repetitive tasks than you will having technology do it. And so if you can develop a system around that, and well, first thing is you need to be able to have a system that you trust. This is why a lot of people hesitate to lean towards technology. If you don't trust the system, you're not going to use it. So you need to have a system that works and that reflects your values. You don't want to have, like, if we're talking about the sales side of things, I love the fact that leveraging technology, you can automate a lot of follow-up sequences. But if you plug into a lot of systems that are out there, those systems, they've got their own cadence that they set and they deem necessary. I was in a space, I'll say in a previous life, where we were doing outbound calls to people who had inquired, and our follow-up strategy was basically call twice a day, every day for 6 weeks, followed up with emails and voice, and every second call had a voicemail left. And it functionally worked. Statistically, we converted more with that approach. But that doesn't align with a lot of people's strategies or their values. They're worried they're going to offend somebody. And so we want to be able to give people the flexibility to design a follow-up cadence that is a balance between maybe what they deem as safe and what will actually convert, right? We don't want them to get to the point of where it feels like harassment. But we know that if you can create a system that is aligned with who you are and what you want the image and perception of your company to be, and you trust that it'll execute exactly as you designed it, it can make a huge impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jeremy, I love this. And part of why I love this is because what you just said is like, you're not using somebody else's cookie cutter approach.
Right.
You're helping companies, like coaching companies, like small business owners like myself. Like I get to use my personality in my sales process, throughout my sales process, through my follow-up, like by using this technology, instead of somebody else's like this is the way it has to be. Because if I had to make 2 phone calls a day to somebody as my follow-up strategy, like I would have given up like by noon. Because it's just not me.
Right.
It's not how I like to be sold to either.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, especially because, with a lot of us, the product or service is a service. It's more of a niche, and you're establishing yourself. So the last thing you want to do is this attack by numbers. And there's a lot of businesses. I'm in the B2B space with large companies. That hasn't changed. There's a lot of personal relationship. You can't go make massive calls. It doesn't exist. That lead list doesn't exist. I mean, there's really only a few influencers and a few decision makers. So creating that relationship is absolutely important. We're strong believers here, Jeremy, that today companies need to be embracing the fact that technology has changed, and that today's sales force, not actual sales force, not the product, but today's sales force needs to understand that there are so many more tools that are effective in what they're wanting to accomplish. So the end result can be done quicker and better today more than ever before. 4 or 5 years ago, especially before COVID, we didn't have this. And now all of a sudden we fast tracked so many different types of technology out there. I mean, it blows me away. I think about if I could start over, I'd have just done it in Google. Like it has saved me so much headache versus, the corporate way, right? Going into Outlook.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeremy, can I ask you a question
Yeah.
while we're talking about all of this tech stuff? Because I know that the stats for how many times you actually have to follow up with somebody has drastically changed throughout the years. I mean, it's just getting like larger and larger. I mean, and I realize it's, like that number, that follow-up number is actually larger because, I mean, it's a noisy world out there. I mean,
It really is.
like I can open up my email inbox and just see I use a specific email just for newsletters. And to be perfectly honest, like over the weekend, I signed up for somebody's little demo product. And because I already know this person, I knew I was going to get a shit ton of emails. And I'm not disappointed. I've been getting lots of emails each and every day. But can you just talk to our audience about follow-up and what the stats are these days?
Yeah. So when it comes to sales, and this isn't just in the online space, this is sales overall. Like you need to have typically between 7 and 12 interactions with a customer before they buy. Now that might be an experience where they see you on social media. Maybe there's a video that you put out there that intrigues them, makes them want to invest in your product or service. But you need to be able to have those touch points, because if you don't, you're in just the screaming loud marketplace where everybody else is doing it, right? We've got ads popping up on every page we land on the internet. Even, our streaming services that we pay now much bigger bills than we ever expected to. Some of them are sliding ads in the mix anyway. So we're being advertised to from all over the place. And generally, we're very distractible. So we live in a world where YouTube videos are a source of education now. And so if you want to get somebody's attention, you need to first hook them so that they're intrigued, but that's not enough. Unless you can get them on a conversation and have them make the decision in the first engagement, which can happen and is great, but I wouldn't make that the design for your default sales process, right? I would love a one-call close for everybody. But people, the challenge is people are, and we used to describe it as they're smarter today.
Yeah.
No offense, we're all buyers. So I'm saying this from both sides. The reality is we're not smarter today. We think we're smarter today because we've got access to more information. And that information tends to have us make poor decisions because there's so much available that we don't do a good job filtering out what's accurate and what's not.
Yeah, we don't go do our own research.
No.
Right. I like that.
And I'm guilty. Like when I go to buy something, I type into YouTube, product reviews. And I go through 3 of them. And if the first 3 of them have the same kind of cadence or the same, the same feelings of positive or negative, that's going to be my default feeling. And I'm either going to proceed based on that or put the brakes on based on that. And those 3 people could have had nothing to do with me. So as business owners, we need to make sure that we're controlling that experience as much as possible. And that means showing up in places where people are looking. So just following up over phone, not going to do the job. You should be following up in text with permission and check legal requirements, disclaimer. But people, like right now, I guarantee all 3 of us, we have no more than 3 unread texts on our phones. But on Messenger or email, there's probably a lot more unread messages. Am I right?
Yeah, and if you want to take in comparison, now I'm bad. But yes, in the email space and everything else, I love that. What is it, Progressive? That does the commercial with the guy that's saying we can't help you from becoming your parents, right? But it's one of those insurance companies, but I love it where they're pulling up a voicemail. It's like, what did they do wrong? Like, oh, they didn't say the number twice. And they all go through these silly answers. He goes, no, you could have just texted, would have been fine. 9 times out of 10, you just send a text. But I love that because yes, like this is where we're at. We're growing, and how we communicate and how we build relationships is different too. Here's one of the things that we've come to find is that in today's buying market, the millennials and the Gen Zers are becoming the largest buying population. And the millennials are now in the middle management spot. So of course, as buyers, we're being trained by the large sellers. Like, this is how we're learning how to buy. I don't care if we're corporate or not. Like, we're still consumers all day and on the weekends. And so we're being trained how to buy that way. And I find it interesting because 73% of that buying market will buy based on your personal brand and how you're established in a digital space. So with your coaching, what have you seen? Like, what are the challenges that you see working with small businesses or that solopreneur?
So when people are reaching out and trying to, get their, or maybe their first client or, their fifth client or whatever, one of the biggest challenges is they don't exist online, right? And I'll be the first to say, yes, if you just have a cell phone and something to sell, you can go make sales. Absolutely. As a starting point, you do not need to wait till a website's built. You do not need to wait till an email campaign is built. You don't need that stuff to start. And when you have those things, things will get easier. So I don't want anyone, if you're brand new and haven't started a business yet and you're on the fence, go start the business, but don't wait for all these pieces to be in play. I don't want you to shy away because of that. I want you to have as many conversations as you can because you need to have the messaging right for your audience. And conversations one-to-one are one of the best ways to do that. However, when you're beyond the first couple clients and you actually want to have people be attracted to you, you need to decide what that attractive character is that you want to be or your business wants to be so that people can be drawn to it. And people are drawn to businesses because of the core values, right? Big corporations use the big logos, but behind the logos is a value statement that gets seeded throughout all the marketing that you get. You think Johnson & Johnson, and if they had their way, you'd think of their baby products, the no tears stuff. Hopefully you're not going to think about any kind of vaccines if they had their way, right? Like they're trying to control that narrative. And so for us, we can control it as well, but we need to exist. So for example, you look my name up on Google, I own the first 3 pages. I know exactly what you're going to find. And every business owner should be the same way. Yeah. Okay. Even if it's not exactly what you want, at least know that it's there before someone tells you. Right. But as you start building up these properties, these digital properties, like your website, like your LinkedIn profile, the about page specifically on your website is one that'll pop up a lot. I think it's statistically the most visited page on your website. You need to create those things so that people can find you. Even if you meet someone face to face, the first thing that we do, and if I did a poll of the 3 of us, I'm sure it's the same. You meet someone new. First thing you do is either Facebook or Google, and then it's the other.
Oh, it's Facebook first.
Yeah.
And then Facebook first, because you're probably going to there's a good chance you're going to get a peek.
Yeah, exactly. And who are they really? And then you go to Google to see if they're legitimate from a business perspective, and then maybe go to LinkedIn. Maybe.
It depends. Like one of the things I used to love when I hired a lot, I'd always laugh when HR said, well, we need, numbers and people to call. And I'm like, what a waste of our time. Like, okay, like I'm going to give anybody that would say, listen, stay far, far, far away from that Rigo guy. And I said, listen, like, you guys just get online, and go look. Like, I'm going to check out their LinkedIn profile. There's a 50-50 chance if this person is in sales and they don't have a decent LinkedIn profile, that's problem number 1. Right. So that just tells me that I'm dealing with someone who is not looking to improve their process. Doesn't need to be perfect, but if they're not even active there, then I already know that they are stuck in a thought process that says this has always worked. I don't need to change. When technology is saying yes, you do, and you're late. Right. And
the worst thing about that is that if they're selling on behalf of a company, it's the company's fault.
Yes.
Because you're going, oh, they're letting their sales reps not have a presence? Well, how are they going to take care of me as a customer if they're behind in the times?
I agree.
Right? That's the story. So, yeah.
One of mine is if you don't have a profile picture.
Oh.
If you don't have a picture of yourself on your website. Yeah, that's another. That's one of my questions.
But even knowing people do Facebook searches, like always having something available for the public to see. It doesn't have to be everything, but curate the public version of your profile, because if someone goes and sees everything on lockdown, they think you got something to hide.
I love that. Curate the public profile. That makes it makes so much sense. That's how we find people, whether we want to admit it or not. Whether it break some sort of HR rule. I don't know. I'm not in HR, but that's exactly how we're going to go do it. We're going to go look up and find out, how is this person behaving in a normal place where they think, nobody's watching. I don't know. To me, I think it's foolish. The way you post on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, I think it's silly that people would behave differently. I'm like, all I have to do is open up the other app. Like, do you remember the meme I'm talking about, right, Jeremy? The one that was like, it would show.
Yeah, on Instagram, on Facebook, yeah.
And I look at that, I'm like, and I knew something needed to change. It was a couple of years ago. I had a conversation with a client, and he had made a comment on Facebook or saying something about Facebook. I said, "Oh, hey, hit me up. I'm pretty active on Facebook." At the time, I was doing more coaching, and I was testing it out there. And he goes, "Oh, I don't connect with people in the industry on Facebook." And I go, "Okay." I said, "So are you telling me that your Facebook persona is the real you and this is a fake you? Because that's what you just told me, is I can't trust you because this persona is not you." I'm like, "Dude, you're going to see the same persona everywhere. I'm going to say the same dumb things and maybe some same smart things at the same place. Like, I'm not going to act any different. You immediately just made me not trust you." And that was when the relationship changed. And I realized how many other people don't recognize the power of technology as a whole, like where they can honestly think that they're siloed by being in two different social platforms.
Yeah.
It blew me away. It blew me away. Not that he said that, but that he believed that he was safe, behaving differently in two places.
Right.
Do you see that kind of behavior with CRM and sales training and everything else?
I think that people, like, from a sales rep perspective, and even business owners that are kind of small and doing their founder-led sales, they have this opinion that there's this segment for the personal life and the segment for business, which is okay. But to think that they can be so drastically different, I think is just a bit oblivious. And so I recommend to people, like, always have something that's available for the public to see. And for me, like, I think everything that I post is public because it is what it is, The only difference, like, for me that I post is, I think on Twitter, I kind of let out a little bit more that I actually like wrestling, like the WWE stuff. I try to keep that on the low down a little bit, but now it's out there. I know it's fake and I love it anyway, for anyone listening. But that's kind of it. Like, everything else is totally transparent, right? You go to Facebook and you're going to see I'm a Vikings fan.
We're just,
but I think having that, approaching it as like, hey, I'm me. I'm not different versions. I might polish my content a little more on LinkedIn than I might on Facebook, but not a lot.
Well, that's only because the structure is different. And then that's the reality, right? In Facebook, it's not built the same way. But social media and social selling as a whole, that's the thing. It's social selling as a whole is a different game. And we have to understand that. In like you said, as an employer, it is important that the employees understand how important building that personal brand is and that structure. I don't need to, this is a pet peeve of mine as well. As a corporate business, we see a lot of companies that somehow feel they own the personal the personal page of like that individual, but it's not about that. It's about training them how to use social selling. Train them on how to use social selling. And then now you have people working together, not against you or, on their own, to where it doesn't strengthen your brand. So, one of the things, you have a podcast as well, which I always love speaking with people that do, Sales Team Rescue Podcast. Tell me what that podcast, and it's a stupid question, but tell me more about what it's about. Yeah. Why do you call it Sales Team Rescue Podcast?
Well, I mean, actually there's because rescuing sales teams is actually quite a broad topic. It's that's actually not a dumb question. What we tend to focus on is I like to bring in people that either have a background in sales success, they're leading a sales team, or business owners that can share like a specific strategy that's worked for them that could be deployed by a sales team. So there's a mix. We've got people that talk about how to, grow their outbound SDR team. I've got people that have come in and just to share LinkedIn strategies that have worked really well for them as a small business owner, but could easily be implemented by a sales team. So anything that can be presented. So here's my transparency. If I like someone and they've got a topic that I think the audience needs to hear about, as long as I can make it align with the idea of helping a sales team increase their sales, or a sales leader or a business owner increase their sales, I'll bring them on.
Sound familiar, Lorianne?
Yes.
I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do the same thing. Like, hey, do you want to help people? Like, I don't care. I always tell people pitch. Like, if you have a product pitch, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
We
it's
love
about
it.
can somebody learn? Yeah, can somebody learn from you? I don't know. I always learn something. It's up to the other person, but no, we love doing this. We love introducing people to others, and that's the other thing too. Lorianne, I think you had something, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Jeremy's company too before I get deeper in, because I want to talk about how he helps companies grow as well, not just train, but in the process of the tools he has, how he actually helps them grow their business in a way they probably didn't expect it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I think would be very beneficial to the audience is just really to talk about like the mindset and the way that we think about sales. Jeremy, I love, and I've heard just your origin story many times, and I love the fact that you were a young person, a teenager who tried something and was just like, wow, this is really fun. Like, you had this very positive first experience. And what I see in the industry is like, people hit their 20s and are like, oh, I'm looking for a job after college. I'm not doing sales. I'm like, life is sales.
Yes.
It's like, do you not realize that you've been selling yourself since day one? So I'm curious. I mean, I think that would be very beneficial to our audience. Is like, let's just talk about the stuff up here.
Yeah, well, I think like like Rigo said when we started, the whole idea of the used car sales industry, we get this like negative vibe, and like if we go way back to the 90s, we're gonna date myself here. This popular kids movie called Matilda, Danny DeVito played a really sleazy used car salesman, and that tends to be the image that stays in people's mind of what sales is. And so I like to use an analogy or a story that isn't a real one, but like if back in the day when you were a kid, an encyclopedia salesperson, and I use that because they don't exist anymore, encyclopedia salesperson, came and jammed their foot in the door to get one of your parents' attention. It doesn't matter if they bought or if they didn't. That's still a negative experience. Yeah. And you're going to walk onto a car lot going, is this guy going to make me feel like that person made my parent? Or you're going to get into sales and go, I don't want to be that. And so if I'm avoiding this, I'm going to come way over to the opposite side, and it's going to be, oh, you just let me know when I can help you. And people need guidance. But if we just leave people out in the ether to say, solve your own problems, we've taken away our commitment to being able to help others.
Right.
Like, all of us are on this call because we have different strengths, different experiences, different superpowers, right? Like, I've gotten speaking gigs because I've worked with Lorianne. Okay, that's her superpower. Make that magic happen and make me rock when I'm on there.
Yeah.
And so like, if you've got something to give, you've got a commitment to do it. How do you impact people?
Yes.
And you can't be hiding scared. Like, I don't want to offend them. You know what? You're going to offend some people. Yeah. But if you're coming across with a positive intention, then it's probably not going to be that bad, right? You're not trying to slam something down someone's throat. You're trying to help somebody see that there's a problem and you may have a solution. And if you do everything you can to help them, you've done your job. Even if they don't say yes, it's okay to get a no in sales. But if you haven't done everything that you can to show them your perspective, and your perspective had better be, I can help them. If it's not, if you don't feel like you can help somebody, don't. Turn around, go the other way, find somebody else. Because you don't want to be selling something that isn't actually going to be a benefit to somebody.
That's right.
But as soon as you believe, you owe it to them, you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your legacy to do everything you can to have a positive impact on that person's life or business.
I love that. So here's what I'm like taking away from that is be a provider of solutions and not a salesperson.
Well, hold it. Wait. No, okay. we don't want to say not a salesperson, because salesperson is not a bad thing.
Yep.
It's just a shift. What is a salesperson? A salesperson is someone who can identify a problem and provide a solution. And sometimes it's just a problem the person doesn't realize that they have.
Love that they don't realize that they have. And so I also want to like sort of highlight, like for all the people who are, I'm not going to do sales because they had that bad experience, like, you know, the couple of examples that you shared with us, Jeremy, is to like think about like what was a bad experience that you had in sales. But then also the flip side is think back to a time where you enjoyed the sales process, you enjoyed buying something, because I think like all of us get to decide like what kind of salesperson do we want to be. See how easy I was to like slip that word in there now? See,
Well,
like, you become the salesperson you want to be. And
you could take that to another level, Lorianne. How many times have we done something and had a bad experience? How many times do I go to Panda Express and get crappy food and service and I still keep going back? The thing is we're always going to have good and bad variations of anything. That's just what the service industry is. We have done how many live shows, and today we had a tremendous amount of technical errors and issues happen. No idea why. We'll figure it out later. But that wasn't a bad experience that's going to say, forget it, I'm never doing these again, I'm done podcasting. All it said was, okay, something's not right, we got to figure it out. You're always going to have bad and good experiences. I think where a lot of folks make the mistake, and it sounds like this is a big area where you help, Jeremy, with the attitude that you have already of the fact that we owe it to our market. We owe it like to share and help others. That right there to me says a tremendous amount about who you are as a character and a person, because I think it's silly when we as leaders or builders, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're building something and you're learning these mistakes and you somehow think that the way you protect your business is by not helping anybody else. It blows me away. To me, there is, you know, like karma is real. And the more you help others, it goes around. What goes around does truly come around. And it's interesting because this is where I think people make the mistake, not understanding what an inbound sales tactic is. And it sounds like a lot of what you teach and train, the follow-up, right? Because the reality is the follow-up should be a process of establishing relationship and trust, not pushing somebody into moving into a decision they're not comfortable to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when it comes to follow-up, I find that a lot of people just have a fear of the idea of it. Follow-up is like bad. I'm not going to do it. If someone didn't say yes in their first conversation, we're going to leave it at that. I'm going to trust that they're going to come back when they're ready. People don't do that. People get busy. So I like to share the story. And this is something that probably the greatest value I've gotten from my dentist, other than having fairly clean teeth, is I went to the dentist, and I remember this like it was yesterday, and they were giving me a hard time about flossing. And we've all had the conversation, unless you're like a super flosser, the dentist has said, you need to be flossing more. And I said, oh yeah, sure. Like most of us probably do. And the dentist said, look, I'm going to make it simple for you. You only need to floss around the teeth you want to keep. And I went, oh man.
And that was it, right? It clicked.
And it clicked, yeah. So I like to look at sales the same way. Look, you only need to follow up on the sales you want to close. That's it.
Jeremy told me this last week, and I stopped. Jeremy, like I'm
Awesome.
still laughing at that. That's
Awesome.
It's perfect. It's just a perfect comment.
So what do you think it is, Jeremy? Do you think it's the fear of the denial, the fear of, you know, don't call me anymore, that feeling that you're not liked, you know, and that's just where it's a whole nother conversation? Or is it just that there is a lack of true training and like skills actually being tossed, you know, given down, passed in from other leaders? This is one of the things I do really strongly believe that we have a lack of. I think there's a lack of mentorship in companies today. It just doesn't exist. Not because people don't want to be, it's just the way we're built now. People don't stay with jobs very long. It's just the way it is. But where do you think the gap is with individuals who are messing this up? Because I know the stats are nuts. It's like 70 something% Like that's where the deal is. It's in the follow-up. It's in nothing else. It's in the follow-up.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. One is sometimes you get salespeople that are really experienced and they feel like they're above the outreach. So this is more so if you're asking them someone to do like cold outreach and not necessarily follow up, but they also feel like their time, and I am guilty of this as well. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not. I would love to spend my time face-to-face or virtually video-to-video or even voice-to-voice with a prospect that I can close in the moment. My least favorite thing in the world is doing the follow-up calls because I get fired up by people. I get fired up by the connection. So there's that group of, we would say more of an account executive type mindset, and they don't want to do the follow-up process. They don't want to do that outreach, and they'd love to automate it if they could. There's another group, though, that I feel like have a really hard time separating a rejection of the product or service versus a rejection of themselves. And so if somebody says no, and if I go way back to the door knocking days, which I did very little of in full transparency, but in the door knocking space, it's easy to get the door shut on you and just, cut yourself down. Feel like, you know what, this isn't good. I'm not good at it. And you're not getting the rejection in the form that it should, which is based on the product. You're getting the rejection as like someone just shut the door, slammed the door in my face. It's me they don't like. And that's the story. And so in the context of your question about are we missing training? Absolutely. Because the proper training will show you, not 100%, but how to more effectively separate a product rejection from a personal rejection. Yeah. And when you do that, then it just becomes a process and hey, I'm going to get 99 no's to every one yes, or hopefully it's only 9 no's to every one yes. But like to show that I was actually, back when I first started my consulting business back in 2014, I guess, I went through a program and I was told by the person running the program, we're in person, we're going to go down to this restaurant and you are not allowed to leave the event. This is like 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night. You're not allowed to leave until you've pitched your product and gotten 10 no's. And I went, oh, that's different. Okay. Yep. And you know what? Come 2 a.m., I had to leave and I hadn't gotten my 10 no's because I was looking for the no's, not the yeses. It shifted my energy around it. Suddenly I wasn't attached to the outcome, but I had to throw in the towel after 4 hours or so because I was just tired. But I got a lot of people who at the time were willing to give me $100 to jump on a call with me for an hour for me to talk to them about sales.
Love it.
And it's just that shift, right? If we make it not about that attachment to the outcome, it doesn't make us any less of a person if somebody says no. Yeah. But we have that attachment that we need to separate and say, hey, there is a process, there's statistics for a reason. Even hosting a webinar, if you're probably going to close 10% of the people that see the offer. The other 90% of the people don't hate you. They just didn't feel like they needed it, or they didn't stay till the end or whatever, right? There's all these reasons, but we often make them about ourselves because we're very self-centered and not always in a negative way, but our world does revolve around us.
So how much do you think we've got sales that doesn't understand the concept of marketing? That's the other thing too, that if McDonald's advertised their chicken nuggets once and people didn't come and buy the nuggets the same day, they don't go, right? I'm not doing that again. Right. They keep driving it over and over and over. And that's the thing that also, I've seen. And where have you seen that, where there's a real disconnect between the person who is bringing that product or service to the market and really understanding the concept of marketing themselves, the message, and that frequency that is required?
So we all think we're special, and we're not wrong, to be clear. I think we're all special people. We're all our own person. But when it comes to statistical probability, we're not different because I can't even say the word. Statistics are designed with us in mind. And so when I go out and say, hey, 10% of the people that see your offer are going to close, and if that's not the number, then we make adjustments. You can't go in thinking that you're the exception. Oh, you know what? I'm different. 90% are going to buy from me. It's not going to happen like that. And if we go into these things thinking about the process, the sales process, and not going, I'm special, what I have is so amazing, everybody's going to want it. Like they might want it. But statistically, there are problems that will happen between the message you send out and the message that is received that create a 90% gap in who's ready to say yes today. And it's not you as a person, it's just what happens in the process. And it could be the person's where they are in the buying cycle. They might not need it today, they might need it next week, right? Or it might be, some of the language you use in the offer isn't on point. Great, not going to connect with the right audience. Or maybe your marketing didn't bring in the same audience that your message lands with. There's so many variables. And so if we step back and say, hey, there's a process, we're not going to get it right. Like when I talk to people, I just say, round 1, it's going to suck. Get it over with fast. Round 2, still going to suck a bit. Get it over with fast. Round 3, you're going to start to see a shift. But let's get that over with fast. So how do we get the first 3 reps out of the way? And you might not nail it till you're on the 10th repetition of this particular marketing action. But let's get them out of the way because they're never going to be perfect. And by the way, nailing it might be that 10% of people buy. That's the bar. And if you're not at the bar, that's when we look at what are the things that we can tweak to at least get us up to the industry standard. Then we can look at how do we go above and beyond. But just know that the statistics are there for a reason. And yes, you can be above or beyond, but that's about process and not about you as a person. Does that make sense?
It does.
Process
Completely.
and practice.
Process and practice, exactly.
Process and practice. Do it. Just do it again and do it again. I mean, I've shared on the show before, like my first time that I ever spoke on, in front of a group of people wasn't good at all. And I leave it up on Facebook. Even my first Facebook Live wasn't that good. But we all start with our first. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's done. Check, but let me do it again. And I'm not attached to what happened from that very first time. I just knew all right, I have to show up again. I have to speak again. That's the only way that I get better at speaking is by speaking. The only way to get better at sales calls is to have sales calls and not fear them. I love this, Jeremy. This is such a wealth of tips and information.
Well, and one last thing I'll make about that point is, I like to look at it. It's kind of like if you're having a bad day, a bad week, you're down and out for some point in your life. I look at it as if I'm going to write a book about my life, as much as it sucks for me today, it's going to make one hell of a chapter in my book. And so I look at it that way because the next chapter I'm still writing. And the book only ends here if I throw in the towel. But I can decide what the rest of this chapter or the next chapter looks like based on whether I'm willing to go all in or not. And so that's the rationale when I'm feeling down, things aren't going my way. I'm like, it's another one of those damn chapters. All right. So that's how I look at it.
Go ahead, Lorianne. I'm sorry.
Okay. I love that, Jeremy. It also reminds me of when my nephews both went off to boot camp. The second one, I actually sent them a card that said, remember, you're doing it for the autobiography. And he actually wrote that out and he put it in his locker so that every single day that he opened his locker, that was what he saw. So that, just like you said, Jeremy, any hard day, it's just one day. And if I throw in the towel, that's right. The chapter's done, the book is done. But I'm going to start writing the next chapter. That is I love the analogy and I love the visual for myself personally because I'm such a visual person anyways. But that's just, I'm going to use the word brilliant today.
If anybody that's played athletics at any level, it's not complex in my opinion. And I think this is why there's certain folks that get it and they're okay with it. It's not the denial aspect. It's the fact that it's just a pure numbers aspect to it. Whether it was baseball, whether football, whether wrestling, didn't matter, what you did. There's always somebody that's going to be better, or there's a process of where you're going to be striking out. Like the best players in the world, have a batting average that's, 400s. I mean, if you think about that's 4 out of 10, that sounds horrible, but it's not. That's the thing. There's 10 pitches, 4 of them get hit. Like that's great. You're working at a different level. Jeremy, as we kind of get closer to wrapping this up, I'd love for you to share with us, how do you help customers close that gap? Like if I'm a small business right now and I'm trying to understand, how do I close this gap of understanding where am I missing out in the follow-up? Because maybe I think I'm doing it right. Maybe I read the right book, right? Where do I close this gap? Like what can I do to kind of do a self-assessment or understand? How can I benefit from watching this program?
Yeah, so I think that the main thing is like, think about where all these customer touch points are. And so from the back end on the technology side, like maybe you've got a CRM and you're trying to keep track of a relationship. Then you've got an email marketing system and you're trying to engage with people there. And then maybe you've got a chat bot on your website where people can come and show up. And you've got all these different sources, and then you've got a phone number, and maybe it's your personal phone number, and you're like, I don't really want to give up my personal phone number, but it's okay. I'm all in business. Let's do it. And then it just becomes hectic because you're going to end up getting a separate phone number for your personal, so you know when it's your family or somebody personally important calling for you. And if we can make the shift to make it simple, we tend to make it really challenging because there's so many places that we need to look to make our customer feel like we're there when they need us. And if we can simplify it, it's going to make life a lot easier. And so for me, like I've put together this system, I call it Sales Edge. And what it does is allow you to bring all the conversations into one place. It allows you to bring in the text conversations, the phone calls, the email marketing, the web pages, the landing pages, the website, the membership area, all in one spot, so that you can keep the conversation and specifically the follow-up of the conversation really, really simple in one place. And you don't have to worry about things breaking. Like when we talked at the first about you need to trust your system. Well, we plug systems together and we hope nothing falls apart, but they often do. And if we've got this one spot now where everything can come together, you can see the process, you can see the engagement. I got a message the other day when I was walking through the mall. Somebody sent me a text to my now business number in Sales Edge saying, hey, how do I download that free gift that you talked about at your last speaking engagement? I was like, wow, that kind of came out of nowhere. But they were looking for it because they were in the room and didn't send the text to ask for it at the time. So I could say, hey, reply back to this number with the word gift and you get it. So then he did. And automatically my sequence went out. Hey, congratulations on requesting the download. Here's the link. So it made it really, really simple. And, I like to lean in a little bit on like, it makes it more cost effective too when it's all in one spot usually, but I don't want to lean on cost. I don't want to sell like cheapest because that's not where we want to go. I want to lean on most effective. And one example I'll share quickly is when I had somebody reach out to me for a speaking engagement. And before I had all my stuff moved over into Sales Edge, I've got this old WordPress website and some things were broken on it. And I just neglected it, which is horrible. And somebody reached out and sent me a message through the website saying, hey, you were referred to us from somebody in our team to do the speaking engagement. Are you available on these dates? And I went, oh man. And I got to check my calendar. And within a few hours, I got a message through this little text app that was on my website that is linked in through Sales Edge saying, hey, it looked like your form was broken. I wanted to make sure that you didn't miss this message looking for the speaker. She basically copied and pasted the message again. Well, that text came in through my webpage and I could go back and forth through her through text. And just like that, $2,500 speaking engagement for an hour of my time, which is, you don't want to miss that kind of stuff. And it was because of the system. If it hadn't been for the system, I might have missed it because the other older technology wasn't working that day for me. So just being able to track it all just makes life so much easier. And to go back to the follow-up side of it, this is all about meeting your customers where they're at and showing up when they need you. In order to do it, you need to be able to have some type of finger on the pulse. And we're all too busy to really do that effectively on our own. So when we can leverage technology to do it, like for example, the guy that sent me that text saying, I want your free download. When does that happen? No one has ever reached out and say, hey, I want your free download. I can't find it. But because he had the number and texted me directly, or it might have come in through the little chatbot on my website, but that allowed me not to miss an opportunity. And so we can design the follow-up process like that through text, through emails, through Facebook Messenger, through Google My Business, through Instagram. And even in there, as far as the whole keeping the message and the image consistent, we've also got the ability to schedule out posts through all your social media platforms, just like that. So
lots of touch points.
Yeah.
Lots of touch points.
That's
I think what I love about what you just shared is how to automate this so that you're not always on your business. You know, you don't have to hire a whole team of people that are there that are answering these questions, because there's technology that you offer that helps with this process.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's really, you know, if there's anything that's coming out of today's program, it's Gary Vaynerchuk says something that I love. He says, you know, stop being so concerned on the method or the tool that gets you there. Be more focused on the results.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, as we see marketing change and sales change, it's changed. It's not changing, it's changed. It's continuing to change. It's still changing.
Yeah.
But it has definitely changed.
And it's an attention game.
Absolutely.
So, and Gary says that as well, right? It's how do you get someone's attention, and you need to be there in the moment.
Love it. Yes.
So, yeah.
Like I have that up on my attention is currency. I have that up on my banner. Attention is currency. And today, understanding how you're going to drive that is absolutely important. And I think, you know, like I said, if there's anything coming out of this, it's understanding and recognizing the need of technology and realizing that if you're a small business owner, if you're a coach or a consultant, if you have a small team, a small sales team, and I love the way you said a founder-driven sales team, which a lot of small businesses can understand this. We work with a lot of those size businesses. You're the president or CEO. You're also a little bit of the finance guy. You're pretty much the main point of contact for sales, and a little bit of safety training, a little bit of operations. It's just who you are as a small business owner. And we get
Chief
this.
bottle washer.
Yes, yes. That, you know, there's many times I walk into the office bathroom and I'm like, nope, not clean enough. And there I am scrubbing the toilet. Big deal, right? That's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But we don't need to overthink it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And I love that. You're looking at simplicity. This isn't about pricing. It's about how do I make this simple? How do I make it seamless? And how do we make sure that we have processes? And this is all to support the entire methodology of understanding how important the follow-up is.
Yeah.
Because really, that's where we lose the opportunity to grow our business is in the follow-up.
Yep. We want to make it easy. Make it as hands-off as possible.
Listen, I love it. We're going to drop information here in the comment section. We'll also make sure that there's more information on this, the full description of the recording as it gets posted into YouTube a week from today when we go live. It'll be in the newsletter as well. If you haven't already signed up for the newsletter, please do so. You can find that in our profile. The same thing goes with being able to follow us and making sure that you do that. It's really not that complicated. You go to the page, you click follow, and you're done. And that's it. And then you get notified every time we go live, every time that we put something out there. And if it's value add, we would love for you to grab a hold of it. If you don't like it, no big deal. But if you do, let us know and share it with somebody. And the same goes with the same kind of content that we know Jeremy's bringing out. And of course, with the lovely Lori-Ann. So Jeremy, I just want to thank you. First off, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And I want to give you an opportunity to final word for our audience as we get ready to wrap this up. And then Lori-Ann, we'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing I want people to take away is that, like, if you've got something that'll impact people, it's your responsibility to get it out there. And anything that you can do to make it easier, simpler, feel less points of friction in doing so is an investment. And so just make sure that some fear, some resistance, some belief is not the thing standing between you and the impact and legacy that you can leave.
Oh, man. That's good.
That
Good
was
luck.
great.
Yeah, good luck on that one, Lori-Ann.
Well, my big takeaway from today is only floss the teeth that you want to keep. So only follow up with the calls that, you know, with the prospects that you want. And I think the other big one is like take advantage of technology. It does that doesn't mean there's a disconnect with you and your prospects. I mean, it means that you're meeting them where they are when they need you.
Yes. Love that. Listen, if you like what we're doing, again, please let us know. We want to meet you where you are. Hopefully you're here watching us live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time, right here. We will be back again with another Contagious Leadership podcast next week. Thank you very much. God bless you guys, and we will talk to you again in a week. See you later.